And now for the second part of the video, day 4 of training camp from Saturday, July 30th today. Now granted, thunderstorming really crazy right now in Atlanta, so don't be shocked if you hear something in the background. And then if you notice the video has skipped, it's because my power's gone out, because it's already gone out a couple of times before I even got to this point. So hey man, I'm just trying to hold it down. We don't get it as bad as Florida, but man, Atlanta gets a little bit of it. But yeah man, day 4, definitely a different type of day. It started off with a Ryan Kerrigan press conference at 8 a.m. And of course, I'm going to dive into all of the most important parts of that to start off everything. And then there was a practice from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Very short day, really light practice, no pads, no nothing. But there's still a lot to talk about, which is why this video is as long as it is. Granted, I don't know how long this video is going to end up being, but based on my notes, I know it's about to be quite lengthy, even with pads not being involved in practice today. Also, today at camp was Military Appreciation Day, so the crowd was full of soldiers and others from the Andrews, Quantico, and other bases around the area, along with some fans too as well, of course. But starting with Ryan Kerrigan, man, first of all, he appreciated the applause that he got from Ron Rivera and his former defensive lineman teammates and dozens of others in the lobby on the way to the podium. He said he was a loss of words for that, and man, I feel it, man. That's a great moment. Also, he said the retirement is the best move for him, but it's still crazy to think that he won't be playing football anymore. Says a knee issue did not help. He said that he got a not so good medical report on his knee. He said he was feeling he could play again at the end of the 2021 season until he started training. So around late June, he knew he was basically about done. He said he felt like he should have retired after the 2020 season before he even played with the Eagles. He said physically it was time to go, but he just wasn't emotionally ready to move on. And I understand, man, if your whole life from elementary school, middle school, high school, college, adult is just straight football, to just finally hang it up, I can't even imagine what that's like. I sympathize with everybody that has to go through with that, even Antonio Gandy Golden, who didn't even really get to start his career for real. And Kerrigan talked about some of his favorite games, but he said beating the Dallas Cowboys week 17 in 2012 to win the division and to be the team that goes into the playoffs. Winner goes in, loser doesn't make the playoffs. He says that tops the list. And hey man, I'm right up there with you, at least top 3 for me. Kerrigan said seeing the park look a little different with the Commanders logo is exciting. It's the start of a new era in Washington. Kerrigan also said that he looks back on his reputation for being durable with pride. He wanted to be available for his team, and that is a testament to how he feels about the game. Kerrigan also said he wants to explore coaching now that he's retired. He says he loves football too much to not be involved in it in some capacity. But he did say, as far as the freedom that comes with not having to remain on a daily football diet, he said, quote, "If I want a beer, I'll have a beer," unquote. And that does have to be a big weight off your shoulders to basically be able to eat, drink, or do whatever you want now. And I thought it was really dope too, because he stuck around after the press conference for the next few hours just to hang around with camp, watch different position groups, mostly the defensive linemen, do their practices and drills and things like that. And he walked around with a Commanders 91 jersey on, which is kind of funny because that's technically a player's jersey that's currently on the team. I believe is Panajwik, the defensive end, I believe. But that's still really dope that they gave him a Commanders jersey with his name with the 91 on it and everything. He walked around with it. That's really cool. But Montez Sweat made sure he went out of his way, came out of the facility post-practice to see Ryan Kerrigan. I mean, they absolutely loved Kerrigan. They respect him. And Kerrigan was there for Chase Young's rookie season, Montez Sweat's second season, and he helped a lot for those guys. And he was also there, of course, for Montez Sweat's rookie season as well. But that Chase Young rookie season, Montez Sweat sophomore season, Ryan Kerrigan seemed like he helped both of those guys a lot, and those were the best seasons we've seen from those guys. Also, we know Kerrigan super durable, playing 139 consecutive games until I think it was like a dirty hit that ended the streak. But one thing you got to appreciate about Ryan Kerrigan, even beyond what he did on the field, and not even what he just did for the defensive linemen as far as helping them, coaching them up, and helping develop those guys, but he also had a strong impact on Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin said that he learned a lot from Ryan Kerrigan, especially as far as taking care of your body. He said, quote, "I got to really learn from Ryan and see the diligence that he took in taking care of his body and adding some things that I think could help me going forward in my career." So Terry McLaurin has changed his diet and just his overall regimen that he does with taking care of his body based on what he saw from Ryan Kerrigan doing, and the fact that he was a model of consistency and durability. Terry McClellan was like, well, hey, whatever he's doing's got to be working, so I'll take some of that and add it to what I'm doing. So at the end of the day, man, Ryan Kerrigan is definitely going to live on through this team even after he retires. And now some quick updates before we go position group by position group. First of all, Ryan Kerrigan was signed to a one-day contract so he could retire, but now he's officially been placed on the reserved retires list. And we released center guard Bo Benchwall, so that opened up 2 spots. So they signed 2 of the tackles that they were working out yesterday, and that's tackle Alex Akinbulu and Rashad Hill. Again, the Commanders worked out offensive tackle Alex Akinbulu, Rashad Hill, and Tyree St. Louis yesterday. Because like I said in part 1, when I broke down day 3 of practice, when you really look at it, we have no tackle depth. Sadiq Charles is technically more of a backup guard than a backup tackle. Cornelius Lucas is gone for still an unknown reason. And then you just have Samuel Cosby and Charles Leno and other guys who I can't even remember their names off the top of my head. Very thin at tackle, dangerously thin. Also, side of the field wise, outside of the PUP list, of course, because the guys on the PUP list are going to be practicing on the side field. Tyler Larson, Chase Young, Logan Thomas, of course. But outside of those guys, you had John Bates, Trey Apke, Jeremy Reeves, and DeJuan Neal on the side. And then you had Charles Leno and Andrew Norwell on the stationary bikes. And just to let you know, it was a veteran rest day for Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Andrew Norwell, and Charles Leno. And then Curtis Samuel had a reduced workload today. So he was reduced yesterday, and he was reduced as well today, along with a lot of other veterans, so I wouldn't panic on Curtis Samuel at all. Now going to the quarterbacks, and what I was really excited about, and I talked about this yesterday in one of my videos about how I couldn't wait for us to finally get to some situational football, and they finally did that today. We did some red zone, we did some 2-minute offense, and Carson Wentz looked pretty good in the red zone stuff for sure. On the 3rd rep, Carson Wentz faked the handoff and shotgun, and then he went up top to Cole Turner, who snagged it for a touchdown. Great ball, threw it up there where only Cole Turner could get it. Easy touchdown. I'm expecting to see that early and often between Carson Wentz and Cole Turner. Cole Turner is not your normal 5th round pick. And then another play, even though it's technically not a positive play, from Carson Wentz, this makes me very happy. The fact that there was one play where everybody was covered, he just threw it out of the back of the end zone so that it couldn't be intercepted. Now, granted, his practice is kind of like, hey, you might as well throw it up. But at the same time, we know Carson Wentz loves to force a lot of things. That's where a lot of his worst plays, if not all of his worst plays, come from, when he's trying to do too much. I mean, there's a lot of us that's just like, Carson Wentz, please, if there's a sack, just take the sack. Don't try to throw the ball while you're like one knee almost on the ground, body parallel to the ground. Just let a sack be a sack, let an incompletion be an incompletion, and move on to the next play. So I think this is a good sign that Scott Turner's coaching is definitely getting to him. First of all, we're starting to see him check the ball down to his running backs in practices. And again, this is only one play, and it's also technically not a positive play, but to see Carson Wentz throw a ball out of bounds on purpose and not force something has me very optimistic about this season. That is literally one of my biggest worries as far as not only Carson Wentz but this entire team. Carson Wentz forcing things. And then in that same red zone drill, 4th and 10 from the 20-yard line, Wentz throws a perfect dot to Jahan Dotson for a touchdown. A lot of zip on it, showing that arm strength that previous quarterbacks for us in recent years have not had. I mean, seeing a lot of zip from a Washington quarterback is just not something we're used to seeing or hearing. Also, JP Finlay pointed out that when Carson Wentz makes quick decisions, it's almost always good. When he holds the ball too long and he overthinks things, that's when mistakes happens, but he's pretty much 100% on point as long as he's making decisions quick. And so I'm pretty sure Scott Turner, first of all, with us last year having the quickest offense in the NFL as far as snap to ball thrown, so we've already seen that Scott Turner knows how to run an offense like that, and I think he's going to try to do that quite a bit with Carson Wentz. Now, granted, we're also going to throw the ball deep down the field a lot more than we've had in previous years, so we're definitely not going to be first in that advanced statistics I just provided like we were last year, but I do think Scott Turner is going to do everything he can to get Carson Wentz to get the ball out of his hand as soon as possible, especially with us unsure about our offensive line going into this season. And when they moved on to 2-minute drills after the red zone drills, and they would have 90 seconds on the clock, for the starting and second units to get into the end zone. Wentz started really strong. He completed 3 or 4 passes. So looking good, looking good. Got the red zone offense doing a little something with the big targets like Cole Turner and Curtis Hodges. And in 2-minute drills, we're hitting our guys that are open. Also, before we move on from Carson Wentz, and I thought this was really interesting, Terry McLaurin on NFL Live, when asked about Washington's addition of Carson Wentz, he said, quote, "He was huge for me to sign that contract," unquote. So, hey, man, if there's one thing you can appreciate about Carson Wentz, don't exactly know how true that is, even though it may not be literally the reason that Terry McLaurin re-signed with us, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the main reasons. So if there's one thing that you can appreciate about Carson Wentz, is that he helped us keep Terry McLaurin longer. And then Heinicke actually had a pretty good day today as well. Now, granted, he hit Mark and Michelle for an easy walk-in touchdown, but Mark and Michelle dropped it. So, you know, even though he's been the guy that was making plays, OTAs, and minicamps, that's not a good sign right there. And then also, Heinicke threw a pass up to Curtis Hodges for a red zone touchdown to where only he can get it. And that's exactly what we want. He's 6'8". We need our quarterbacks to be able to throw the ball up to him where no DB has a chance. And Curtis Hodges has shown that he will come down with it so far in training camp. Also, Sam Howell keeping the momentum going from yesterday, where you could argue he was the best quarterback. At least he performed the best yesterday. And he was showing off his arm. He was making tight window throws. He was throwing deep, and he was making quick decisions. Today, he scrambled for a touchdown while working with the third team. So now he's starting to show his legs as well. Hey, man, I'm really excited about Sam Howell. I don't know. He's definitely further ahead in his development than I expected, to be completely honest. I wasn't pessimistic about him, but I just felt like it would take longer for him to get to where he's currently at already. Definitely don't get too excited. Sam Howell, I do not believe is ready to play in a regular season game yet, but he's definitely further ahead than I thought he would be at this point, which is great news. And I'm excited to see what he can do in preseason. Now for the running backs, Antonio Gibson is back. He was going through individual drills so far throughout training camp, and he's just straight up been on the side field working back from his hamstring issue. But today he finally was in unit drills and everything. He was out there. So Antonio Gibson is back. The first drill he was working on was ball security drill. Good. That needs to be the thing he does first and last every day. Ball security drills. That fumbling problem, man, we cannot have that this season. I believe in Antonio Gibson, and he's from Metro Atlanta area, so you know I want to root for him as hard as I can, but I'm gonna need to see you not fumbling the ball and being dynamic. But he looked really good in running back drills. He looks strong, looks like he hasn't missed a step. If anything, because of the weight that he lost, he looks even faster and more explosive. So I think Antonio Gibson's gonna have a big year and definitely improve his Madden rating, which he was very disappointed about. I mean, it is kind of weird that he was one of only 7 running backs last year to rush for 1,000 yards out of the entire NFL, and he went down a rating from his previous season. Now moving on to the wide receivers, Curtis Samuel was out there, but he was not doing team drills like I said earlier. He was reduced. He was pretty much just kind of taking a veteran day off like the other guys. It's different for him though, because he takes quite a bit of days off, so it's not the same as like a Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, but still ultimately it's Saturday. It's just a quick lighthearted, no pads practice, of course, and so they just let him chill. But Dyami Brown had himself a day. I mean, Heinicke gave him a really good throw, and he went up and got it. And then, of course, Jahan Dotson, like I mentioned earlier, that 4th and 10 from the 20, went up there and got that touchdown from a beautiful ball from Carson Wentz. And it's funny, too, because on that Jahan Dotson touchdown, Wes Schweitzer went up and got the ball to spike it. You know that's his thing. And, again, our receiving core had a great day. They've been having a great camp period, but there's going to be some issues. Terry McLaurin had a drop today that just hit him straight up in his hands, and he just dropped it, and that's the 2nd day in a row that he's done that. And then Jahan Dotson had one play right before that 4th down touchdown that he got. On 3rd down, he looked lost, and he looked like he didn't know where he was supposed to be. So you're gonna get some of those rookie mistakes from Jahan Dotson as well. But overall, they're still all having a great camp, especially him and Terry McLaurin. Even though Terry McLaurin had that drop and Jahan Dotson had that mentally cloudy play, they're still balling out. Then tight ends, again, like I said in part 1, when Antonio Gandy Golden retired, Logan Thomas on the PUP list, and John Bates basically just working off on the side field, not doing team drills. Cole Turner's your tight end 1, Sammis Reyes is your tight end 2, and Curtis Hodges is probably third, and they're all stepping up big time and looking like they all deserve to make this roster. Starting with Cole Turner, again, he was the one that caught a pass from Carson Wentz for a touchdown, just threw it up there only where he can get it, and he actually had 2 touchdowns in the red zone today. So he's showing what a lot of us thought he could do. Be that big target that could just go up and get it in the red zone, dependable red zone target, has the ceiling to be an elite red zone, great catch radius type of guy. I'm really excited about Cole Turner's potential. And also, one thing that really stood out to me about Cole Turner is that he was QB friendly for everybody. Whether it was Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke, he was open and catching everything thrown towards him. So that's big. I mean, granted, the priority is for him to be a great QB-friendly target for Carson Wentz, but the fact that he's one for Taylor Heineke as well, it shows that no matter what's going on, no matter who's at quarterback, if there's an injury or not, Cole Turner should be able to produce. And then, of course, like I already said, Curtis Hodges was really good today as well. He had a really impressive touchdown with 2 defenders on him during 2-minute drills. I mean, he was literally surrounded, and I mean, he's 6'8". Doesn't matter how many people are on him. If the quarterback throws it in the right spot, he's going to be the one that comes down with it, and yes, he did. But again, Cole Turner, Sammis Reyes, and Curtis Hodges are all taking advantage of the opportunities that they're getting, being moved up higher on the depth chart. They're all making plays. Cole Turner mostly with the starters, Sammis Reyes getting some time with the starters, Curtis Hodges up there with the second team instead of the third and fourth, and they are making every snap count, every catch count. And I was really happy to see Sammis Reyes in the 2-minute drills with the starting offense, and he had 3 catches, and one of them came on 4th down. So that's what I love to hear, because we already know Sammis Reyes and John Bates are easily our 2 best blocking tight ends. But the fact that he's becoming a receiving target, a dependable one that's catching pretty much everything thrown his way, that is huge, man. Y'all know I'm really excited about Sammis Reyes and all of these crazy athletes we have on the back end of the tight end group. Curtis Hodges for his height and his ability to move faster than the guy you think should even be able to move at that size. And then Armani Rogers and Sammis Reyes are just absolute freak athlete aliens that you just don't find in the NFL. Most NFL teams don't have a guy like Sammis Reyes or Armani Rogers, and we have 2 of them. And then moving on to offensive line, nothing significant, but Chase Roulier held a press conference, and the most interesting thing from that was that he said that John Moscow does a good job of mixing up a lot of the lineups. That allows him to build relationships and camaraderie with his teammates. So like I said earlier in part 1, again, this is part 2, John Moscow is doing a great job of mixing and matching the offensive line. First of all, because we actually currently have injuries, but in case there are injuries in the regular season as well, they're mixing and matching so guys aren't panicking and it's not really weird and strange. You're not playing next to a guy that you've never had snaps with before. So they're making sure everybody has played with everybody, so if there's an injury and somebody has to sub in, it should be just as smooth as the starters, at least ideally. Then defensive line wise, nothing significant again, because John Bates and Montez Sweat sat out, but I like the fact that Ryan Kerrigan was there watching the D-line and talking to him and things like that, and he was throwing a ball back and forth with Jonathan Allen at one point. Again, Montez Sweat after practice went out of his way to go talk to Ryan Kerrigan. It's beautiful, man. Nothing significant from the linebackers today, but going straight to the defensive backs. And some of the most notable things was William Jackson III's press conference. He said a lot of things that honestly makes me more optimistic about this secondary and this defense. First of all, he repeatedly mentioned that he was more comfortable in year 2 at Washington, and he has been going crazy this offseason to show it. Last year, he was often targeted by the offense, but this year and second half of last year, is rarely thrown his way. Remember, second half of last year, it got to a point where he started to basically lock down a third of the field. He was just erasing receivers. Quarterbacks stopped throwing it his way the second half of the season, and it looks like that's continuing this offseason as well, which I'm super excited about. William Jackson III also said that he's feeling more confident in what he's doing. Said his transition last year took longer than expected, and he said that the Bucs game was where he started to finally feel comfortable. And he said, quote, "As long as I know what I'm doing, the sky's the limit," unquote. And I agree. William Jackson has locked down potential, and again, the second half of last season showed it but we got to see if he can do that consistently and if he can do that going into this season. I mean, he's super excited. He's super optimistic, which has me optimistic. He said, quote, "I'm having fun. I've got my swagger back," unquote. And he wanted to emphasize that the communication in the secondary is, quote, 1000% better, unquote. And again, with how passionate he was saying that, it sounds like it's a true thing, and it's also showing in practices. Our secondary has played way better in practices so far this offseason than they did last season at this point, for sure. And these guys just look more confident. The communication definitely looks crisper with not having a whole bunch of this guy's open 10 yards down the field by himself yet. We haven't had any of those. If somebody's really open, it's just because they beat their guy one-on-one really bad, but we're not just straight up who had him type of stuff right now, which was a huge problem for us. The Bucks game, the Giants game, so many games last year. Falcons game, man, oh my lord. And of course, I mean, there's not a day that goes by without Benjamin St-Juste having a good pass breakup. Granted, it was against Alex Erickson, so that's not top receiver competition, but he's been doing it to Jahan Dotson, he's been doing it to Terry, but I'm still gonna point it out when he does it to Alex Erickson as well. It's consistency. It doesn't matter who he's covering. Tight ends, running backs, slot receivers, big receivers like Cam Sims, Benjamin St-Juste is on them. Also, Derek Forrest has been really good. Today was a really good day for him, especially in 11 on 11s. He stopped 2 run plays. So right now, he's looking like our premier Buffalo nickel. Again, technically, Benjamin St-Juste is your 11th defender that's on the field the most so far in practices. It may be on the field the most to go into the season. But if we're talking about specifically a Buffalo nickel, a guy that can also run stop and cover a little bit, Derek Forrest right now is in the lead. And again, it only helped this case today by making 2 great run stops, and throughout training camp these first 4 days, he's also made some good plays in coverage as well. And then don't forget about the other guys. I'm hearing great things about Cornelder and Christian Holmes. I'm hearing that right now, outside of the obvious 4 corners, those 2 have been the best, and then there's a gap, and then everybody else. So it sounds like Cornelder and Christian Holmes are your best bets to be 2 of the 6 corners that make this roster, depending on how many we end up keeping. And just going back to Derek Forrest again, man, I mean, he really stood out in practice today. Those 2 run stops were in red zone drills, and I just can't wait to see what he does in pads, because he's mostly known for his hard hitting. The things that he's doing well in practice right now were his weaknesses: run fits, taking good angles, coverage. We already knew that he was a really good hard hitter, so I can't wait to see what he does in practice. Now, granted, we don't want him knocking out our own players, but it's crazy because he's one of those guys that's only going to be better in pads, and we haven't even seen him in pads yet. And also, before we move on to special teams, did want to point out that William Jackson only talked about his press conference, but he had a really good pass breakup on Terry McLaurin today, just straight up one-on-one, and won the rep. Now, lastly, special teams during kickoff return drills. All you had was Alex Erickson, Dax Milne, Jaquez Ezzard, Kyrie McGowan, and hey, Jared Patterson, my first Jared Patterson special team signed in this entire offseason. I haven't heard his name mentioned with punts or kickoffs in OTAs, mini camps, or nothing. And so far in training camp until today, as in Saturday, normally it's been Jahan Dotson, but Jahan Dotson didn't take part in that today. It was Jared Patterson. So maybe Jared Patterson's closer to making the team as a kick returner, whereas Jahan Dotson's more of a punt returner. And again, I mean, like I said in part 1 of this video, I'm not even entirely sure if they're ever gonna let Jahan Dotson do it. If they do, it'll probably be very rare, but we'll see. And lastly, there was some live field goal kicking today. Joey Sly was 4 for 4, including a 50-plus yarder. There was one high snap though, so Cameron Cheeseman get it together. But other than that, Joey Sly continuing to look like that franchise kicker that I keep hyping him up to be, because I truly believe he can be that guy for us, for real, for real. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.